What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the show, man. Recap with Mo, where we getting ready to get into a new one. But before we get into it, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss shiznit that's going down, alright? So look, I'm super excited about this new show that I'm getting ready to present to this channel, to this platform, alright? Now, first and foremost, let me go ahead and give props to my wife, because the missus was the one that told me about this show. She had gone to the hairdresser and got her hair done, and while she was sitting in the chair, she mentioned this show to me that they were all watching. So I was like, what the hell were you watching? So she says it's actually on BounceTV. So I was like, shit, do we even have BounceTV? So listen, guys, I'm actually admitting that I've never watched the show on BounceTV. I'm ashamed of myself. Now, I actually know who owns the network, but I've never watched it. So I'm going to have to do a lot better. I'm going to have to do a lot better, y'all. So anyhow, man, so the show that I'm getting ready to present to you guys, they're getting ready to start their third season in August. So I wanted to go ahead and recap some of the previous episodes to get you up to par, and we can go ahead and get into season 3 together, all right? So anyhow, we're going to go ahead and start with season 1, episode number 1, titled Brotherly Love. All right, so the synopsis for this episode states: a guy's night out that doesn't go exactly as planned. They run into popular radio host Eugene Johnson, who gives them relationship advice. Keith flaunts his new crush, Bianca, and is challenged by the guys to test her loyalty. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this thing, all right? So we start this episode right here with the guys pulling up to the club or to the lounge or whatever the hell you want to call it. So they pull up and everybody's getting up out of the car, everyone except for Keith. Of course, because he's on the back seat and they got on the child's lock. So he's asking for assistance to get up out of the car. So anyhow, when he gets out, everybody's excited. They was like, all right, we're going to have a cool time tonight. We're just going to hang out with the fellas and go ahead and kick it with the ladies, all right? So Keith gets himself together and he's super excited, and he turns to Omar and he says, hey, man, this is your celebration, your divorce celebration or whatnot. And the fellas are like, hold on, wait a minute. And Omar's like, what the hell are you talking about? And they was like, look, we are not calling this a divorce celebration. This is simply a celebration for our man right here. So anyhow, they head up to the door where they see the door attendant, and he's pretty much like, hey, what's your name, whatnot? And they say Johnson. And he was like, all of y'all? They was like, yeah. So he was like, are y'all brothers? And they was like, yeah, we're brothers. I could already tell y'all that Keith is the one that is going to keep the comedy coming, because when the doorman asks, are they brothers or whatnot, he turns around and says, oh yeah, we're brothers, but we don't have the same mom nor the same dad. So everybody's looking like puzzled as hell, because it was like, okay, but that's anyhow, man, so while they're trying to decide what's going on, old boy has pretty much conveyed to them that he only has one table left, and it's high as hell because you gotta pay for the bottle, the table, and all of that shit. So while they sitting up there trying to discern what they gonna do or whatnot, we see two sisters getting up out of their ride, handing their keys over to valet. So when they're starting to walk up the steps, one of the brothers is like, hey, is that Naomi? So Omar turns around and he's like, oh, hell no. So anyhow, they walk up and Naomi is like, hey, what's good, Omar? It looks like it's guys' night out at the club or whatnot. So Jarvis responds like, no, this is actually not a club, but Jarvis, it is. It's a lounge, it's a club, it's whatever the hell you want it to be. You know, you getting in there to get your groove on, get your drink on. That's exactly what you're coming to do. So anyhow, long story short, the gentlemen are not allowed to come into the club simply because they lose out on the numbers game, all right? So the doorman couldn't discern who he was going to allow to come in. So he says, hey, you guys pick a number that I got in my head. The one that's closest to the number will get the table or whatnot for $600 and the bottle of whatever they were drinking, right? So, of course, Keith says, I'm good at it because I watched The Price is Right. what he say? The Price is Right or some shit like that. So he chooses number one out of all numbers. Like, I've never chosen the number one when I'm, choosing 1 to 10. So he chooses number one, and of course Naomi, she chooses number 5, and old boy said my number was 7. So of course she was the closest one to it. So the doorman was like, "Hey fellas, I'm sorry, you're just not going to be able to come in tonight, or you can go with the general population because this is the VIP." All right. So anyhow, going on from there, Omar's like, "Okay, it's not all lost. We still got things going on." So he was like, "Hey, I know another spot we can go to. They got food, they got ladies, they got every damn thing." So they was like, "Okay, cool. We'll head over there." Man, these jokers ended up at a restaurant. Not only a restaurant, shit, it was a fast food. It was a fast food restaurant. So I was like, what the hell, Omar? So anyhow, he does not care. This man has stated that I hadn't eaten all day, so I'm going to go ahead and eat. So he was the only one really getting down into his plate or whatnot. So everyone else was like, what in the hell is going on? And it was like, look, I know they getting it on. I know they getting their party on back at the lounge or the club or whatever you want to call it. So they was like, no, it can't be too bad. It's only Tuesday night. Can't be too much going down tonight. So anyhow, Keith pulls up his phone and he says, I don't know about that. Look like they having a pretty good time to me. So they was like, let me see. So he shows them, and he's like, oh, they putting on for the gram, which, truth be told, a lot of people be putting on for the gram, but in this case, y'all just feeling some type of way because y'all ass couldn't get inside of the club. Anyhow, going on from there, man, the drama thickens because Greg is like, hey, while he's sipping on this cup right here, he was like, I'm just interested, why the hell you still following Naomi or whatnot? So Omar and everybody at the table look at Jarvis like, what the hell you doing? And he was like, oh, I didn't know that we were supposed to stop following Naomi. And and they was like, oh, well, you good as long as you don't like nothing on her page or whatnot. So he was like, hey, cool. And then he says, well, how recent? He was like, well, how recent are you talking about? Because what if it was this morning because she had these recipes or some shit that she had posted? So they was like, oh, they looked at him with the side eye. So I was like, come on, bro, you can't be breaking the code right here. If one of the fellas, girls, they step away, you got to step away as well. That's just the code. It is what it is. So anyhow, after he says that, Omar starts to look through the phone, and it was like, well, who else is he following? Is he still following old girl? Whoop, whoop, whoop. And he was like, yeah, he's still following her. So both of them, they look at him like, I know you ain't still. He following all the girls, man. So anyhow, they chase his ass up out of the restaurant, and he runs out. So anyhow, man, from there, we get to the next day, where we see this Toyota pulling up in front of this crib, and we see a badass old school now. So the Toyota that just pulled up in front of the house, this young, nice looking thing comes up out of the car, and when she comes out, she sees the car in front of the house, and she has this little smile on her face like she's glad to see that car and whatnot. So I was like, all right. So we see our boy Greg in there cooking it up. So he's in the kitchen cooking it up, getting ready, to surprise this lady when she gets home from work because she's worked a 12-hour shift or whatnot. So when she gets in, she's just smiling. She's leaning upside the door frame, and she's just happy to see Greg in there cooking it up. Just happy to see him. Man, I love black love, man. Anyhow, so she pranks his ass by getting on the phone, and she was like, hey, there's a stranger in my house. He looks up like, what the hell are you doing? And she was like, he's in here putting sugar on my grits. Now, that's a day-long conversation because I just so happen, like, I ain't never, like, let's go ahead and have that conversation real quick. I ain't never loved salt on my grits. I'm just being honest. I've always grown up with butter and sugar, just a little bit of sugar in my grits. Now, y'all let me know down below what y'all think about that. I know a lot of people gonna say, shit, I want my salt or I want my sugar. Whatever you like, it's your preference. But for me, I gotta have a little butter and some sugar. But let's get back on the episode, right? So she decides to come on inside the kitchen, and he was like, so you don't want no sugar? She was like, well, And she looks up at him and she was like, well, I take a little bit of sugar and whatnot. So I was like, yeah, bro. So anyhow, they had this little side conversation. He takes his plate inside of the dining room. She follows, and they sit down and they have this conversation. Long story short, she's unhappy because he's only showing up as a conveniency for him and not necessarily for her. And she wants all of that to change. She wants him to, commit to the relationship and just move in full time, because she feels like he has one foot in and one foot out. But he conveys to her that, look, I've already gone down that road, and unfortunately it didn't work out, so I just want to take my time, which I can honestly understand that, sometimes we rush into moving in. And me personally, I've never moved in with anyone. Pretty much I just had my own little apartment or whatnot, and my now wife would just come over, and I really didn't have any furniture. It was a true bachelor pad, right? So, when she came over, we would watch movies and kick it or whatnot, but there was nothing for her to do there except for to go back home. So anyhow, going on from there, she was like, look, we've been together for almost a year. I know some folks already who have been together for 6 months, and they've already moved in. But he was like, look, we just need to take our time. So I'm with Greg on this, all right? Don't get mad at me. I'm just going to stand my ground right there with Greg, all right? I'm going to stand right behind you, Greg, all right? So, I almost forgot this part right here. So, he was looking at her while he was talking to her and chewing on his food or whatnot, and he noticed that she wasn't really eating on her plate. So he was like, is everything good? Do you need me to fix those pancakes or whatnot for you? And she was like, no, everything is perfect, because she's in love. But when they showed them damn pancakes, I was like, hell no. She was like, nah, they perfect. See, that's what people say when they in love and shit. But anyhow, going on from there, man, we head over to an attorney's office where we see Robin and Omar having a conversation about the filing that his wife, or ex-wife to be, Naomi, has filed on Friday. So when he comes in, he's just, catching up with Robin or whatnot. We find out that they knew each other from undergrad and that he was pretty nice to her back in the day. So she's doing the favor for him, giving him the homie hookup or whatnot. So after their little side conversation, they get into the nitty gritty of why they are there. And she pretty much conveys to him that Naomi wants full custody because she states that he has an issue with anger management, and she brought up a whole battery case that he had on his record or whatnot. So he was like, are you serious? So she was like, look, I know how difficult this may be or how it may seem, but I need you to work with me so I can make sure that you as a strong father figure can be in your child's life. And I'm with that. I believe that we need to have strong father figures who are not negative, who are positively, impacting their children in a positive manner, guiding them in the right direction. And it's ironic because in society, definitely here in the United States, they always make it seem like, the black dads are the deadbeats or whatnot. But it's ironic to find out that Black fathers are more hands-on. They are involved more so than any other father. So it's just crazy that we never see that stuff publicized publicly. But anyhow, moving on from there, man, we see Jarvis over at this huge-ass house that he's obviously selling to this couple who is interesting because every time he would talk about the space and how many rooms this house had, the wife specifically would get excited about all the privacy that the guests would have. And they were talking about, all these interesting little things. And I was like, what the hell are y'all talking about? I'm like, oh, y'all some freaks. Like, Jarvis was thrown off a little bit like, oh, y'all. It reminded me of that episode with Martin where he was invited to that party that, he thought it was going to be the big thing because he was going to be with all these big wigs, and all of a sudden it happened to be one of those little freaky deaky parties or whatnot. So when they get outside, they asked Jarvis about his credentials, how long he's been selling properties. He was like, a little over 10 years or whatnot. And he was like, why? And the guy, the husband, was like, well, I just wanted to make sure that they had the best man for the job. Definitely when it comes to a property like this, like, would you be able to handle the job? So he was like, yeah, I'm quite sure. But he said, to be quite honest, this is actually the least expensive house I've sold this year. And he was like, oh, really? So you the big man on the pole over there, right? And he was like, yeah, I actually own the company. And they're like, what? But that ain't what got me. Because at first I was pissed off, but this is what got me, though. When he said that, the wife was like, hey, babe, can we invite him to the party? I said, they some freaks, man. They some freaks for real. Going on from there, we see Keith over there taking photos of Bianca. She's alright, but I love my chocolate, man. So anyhow, I love all women, but I just have my preference. So she's taking pictures or whatnot. So anyway, long story short, she hasn't paid him previously, and it looks like she's not going to pay him now. So he goes ahead and asks her out on a date or whatnot, but he's extremely nervous to ask her out. So she was like, yeah, if you ask him to go out, yeah, come and pick me up on Friday. And as a matter of fact, you know what, I'm going to pay you your money on Friday as well. He was like, oh, okay, you cool. So anyhow, long story short, he goes out with the fellas. They out at the pool hall, and he's telling them about Bianca. So they was like, oh, you pretty excited about old girl? He was like, yeah, So he shows the picture of Bianca, and they was like, oh, you got a supermodel, like we've seen her before. So they're looking at her IG account and whatnot. So then they see the old Mr. Johnson come in, and he's talking to the ladies and whatnot, and they was like, what is he doing out this late? So anyhow, they go over there, and they sit down with him, and he starts to talk to them about, hey, she kicked my ass out. I'm just here to celebrate the time, but y'all can kick it with me or whatnot. So anyhow, they started talking about Bianca and all that shit like that. So he was like, hey, you need to go ahead and do the test with her. So they was like, the test? And he was like, yeah. See if she is what she's talking about. So anyhow, they use Omar as the test subject. So after they decide to use Omar as the test subject, Keith is like, oh, that shit ain't gonna work. She ain't gonna fall for that. So anyhow, Omar is like, okay, I'm gonna just go ahead and give her my number and slide into her DMs. So they was like, okay. So anyhow, moving on from there, Keith actually goes out on a date with Bianca, and long story short, it didn't come out the way that he thought it was going to come out. So when he gets off into her apartment or whatnot, she was like, look, I'm a little embarrassed about letting you in because my apartment is a little junky or whatnot. He was like, I'm cool. I can cover my eyes up or whatnot. So he gets into the apartment, and she has a king-size blow-up mattress. So he was like, oh, you got the whole king-size. It had stuff everywhere. So I guess he thought he was going to get lucky or whatnot, but obviously it didn't work out that way because she made a lame-ass excuse why they couldn't hang out for the night. So she was like, look, I got to get up early in the morning. He was like, yeah, you know what, I got to do the same. Then when he gets outside, she doesn't really even want to give this man a hug. I was like, hell no, she gave him the friend tap. So anyhow, going on from there, let me head back over to Greg. So Greg and his girl, they kicking it off, and he gets in and she's oiling her scalp. I love to see sisters oil their scalp. So anyhow, he says, look, babe, I love you or whatnot. I'm here. I'm just checking you out. She was like, no, if you love me, come on here and oil my scalp or whatnot. And he was like, oil your scalp? She was like, yeah, oil my scalp. So she sits in between his legs or whatnot, and he pulls her hair back and starts to oil her scalp or whatnot. He said, I'm doing pretty good, but that head big. So anyhow, going on from there, man. So like I said before, we're pretty much at the end of the episode because, with the whole situation that went down with Bianca, the half-ass hug that she gave him, the friendship hug that she gave old boy Keith, and now we're seeing Omar laid up in the bed. So when he's laid up in the bed, he looks like he's getting ready to go to sleep or whatnot, and he receives a phone call not too long after Keith has left old girl's house. And I was like, hell no. I said, that's Bianca. And as soon as he picks up the phone, he was like, what's good? She says, Omar? He was like, who is this? She was like, hey, you sent me a DM with your number. And he was like, Bianca? And that sits up, and he was like, what the hell? So I'm intrigued as hell as what this man is getting ready to do, because his ex-wife is out and he need So anyhow, that's pretty much the end of my recap of episode number 1 of season 1. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this thing right here, because I enjoyed recapping. So I'm getting ready to do episode number 2 and episode number 3. So you will see those very soon, all right? With that being said, I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.